Today on Inside Utah Politics, Utah's 4th congressional district. 4 Republicans are hoping for the chance to face Representative Ben McAdams in November. They are here to make their pitch to you, the primary voters.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin with Burgess Owens, one of 4 Republican candidates seeking the party nomination in Utah's 4th congressional district. Burgess, welcome to Inside Utah Politics. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Glenn. Looking forward to it for sure.
Let's start off with your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up down in deep South Tallahassee in the 60s, and it was a pretty tumultuous time, but I grew up in a really remarkable community, very much middle class. Was the 3rd football player to be given a scholarship at the University of Miami. Played there for 4 years. My degree was in biology and chemistry. Jets for 7 years. Raiders, when I used to win football games, for 3 Super Bowl championship. And for the last 25 years after that, I was pretty much in the corporate environment world. I came here and actually started a not-for-profit called Second Chance for Youth, which is working with at-risk kids to make sure they come out of the juvenile system, that they truly understand the benefits of this great country and having a second chance.
So what's your interest in Congress? Why do you want to go to D.C. and try to accomplish what you would like to there when it's not an easy job these days?
Well, I'm one of those guys who always said up until last summer I would never ever be a politician. But I was really blessed, again, to grow up in a community that at that time the black community was an example of what happens when we come here. We apply ourselves to the tenets that make our country great. Leading the country in middle class, leading the country in men matriculating from college, entrepreneurs, over 40% of us, and men committed to marriage. I saw that, and I also saw what happened in the last 50, 60 years as it's been turned upside down by a very evil ideology of Marxism, socialism. I don't want to see that happen to our country. What I see now, and I think this last few months, shows what happens if we're not very careful to realize that freedom is very fragile. We have to make sure that we understand what it is, what our rights are, and then recognize those who are trying to, in a very devious way sometimes, to take that away from us. So I'm here because I appreciate the values I grew up with. I appreciate the values I live within, and my 6 kids also. And I want to make sure that this is the district, and this is the state, that's the linchpin for the rest of our nation, bring us all back.
What do you see as the most pressing issues facing those who live in Utah's 4th congressional district over the next couple of years?
The issues that face our district are the same issues faced across the country, and that's what we have to understand. Americans are the same. We want life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I think things where we don't understand the value of life is something that impacts not only us here, but impacts our country. If we don't understand the Fifth Amendment and realizing that the right of due process and property is very, very important, as we watch now people's lives being changed upside down as they cannot go out and pursue life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I think the most important thing is education. I grew up in an educated home. My dad has got his PhD at Ohio State, and I understood the power of critical thinking. And there was something Thomas Jefferson said very clearly: ignorant and free can never be. If we do not educate ourselves to what our country stands for, our Constitution, if we do not educate our kids to be critical thinkers, to ask the question why, and to push against narratives that just come through because emotions are being hyped up, we need to educate ourselves so we can really fight for what's really made our country great. That's what our founders were able to do, and we've been able to survive for 200 years plus, and nothing has come close. The closest constitutional republic is 17 years. We've done it right because we've been educated people.
You mentioned that our lives have been turned upside down in ways we couldn't have even imagined when you entered this race. Life has changed in the middle of the game. What's your assessment of how we have handled the coronavirus pandemic across the country?
I think the way we've gone at it, the way our president went at it, is the way we should when lives are at stake. When the models come out that over 2 million people are going to die, of course we have to make sure that lives are protected. Now we have to make sure our economy is protected. The thing that I'm learning and I grew up with understanding is that the greatest power that we have in this country is our middle class. And that middle class is powered by small business owners. We need to make sure that that is never ever put at risk again. And what we see across the country is an ideology, once again. Look at the Marxist socialists who really are thrilled to keep things shut down as people's lives are changed, businesses are being lost. The things that we now know makes our country the great country it is.
Okay.
So this is going to be a good moment for us as we come out of this and begin to have a conversation with each other.
Okay, if you say we can't go backwards, how do you maintain economic and public health moving forward then?
What we do is we allow we the people to take a part in this. We need to be educated, of course, of what the enemy might look like, and then let us make those decisions. I'm sitting here at a station where social distance has been put up at the ultimate. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, but it's working. And that's what we people do. We are creative. We can think about what does it take to make sure that customers feel comfortable when they come to our office, to our business, and that they keep coming back. If we allow the business owners to do that, then this will work out and we'll kick our economy back into order pretty quickly.
Burgess, we have 30 seconds left. I want to give you an opportunity to make your pitch to Republican voters. Why should they go with you on June 30th?
Because I'm the only one that can beat Bill McAdams. My history and my unifying message of head, heart, hands, and home, education, God, industry, and family brings all of us together. No matter if we're Democrats, Independents, or Republicans, we need to come together, guys, at this particular point. Find out who the true enemy is, and that's the evil socialists and Marxists who turn our society upside down because they hate those four tenets.
Burgess Owens, we're going to have to end it on that note. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Glenn, very much, very much.
We'll be right back with another candidate after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Utah's 4th District is the only congressional seat held by a Democrat in our state. Today, we are checking with the Republican candidates hoping to flip it. Kim Coleman is one of those candidates seeking the party nomination. Kim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Glenn.
You bet. Let's start off with your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done.
So I'm a mom of 5, but I've been serving in the Utah House of Representatives for the last 6 years with a strong conservative record, a good, strong, reliable voting history. I've been living in the district for over 25 years. I have deep roots through CD4.
What do you feel qualifies you the most for this position?
Well, again, I have those roots in the community. We have a very strong grassroots army. I do have that voting record, and I've won 4 elections in the district already, 3 times for the Utah State House and recently on our Republican convention. So 4 times winning. We know how to win. We've never lost.
So you mentioned your time in the House. I've done stories with you on bills that you've been able to get through. You have been able to move things through at the state level. So what's your interest in now taking that and trying to move that to Washington, D.C. to be part of Utah's delegation?
You know, we need good people in all levels of government. So I've been working for the 6 years in the Utah House. I want to take those strong conservative principles back to D.C. and represent those in Congress. They are not being represented right now. Our home, our values are not being represented in Congress. And I want to go and save our fundamental freedoms for the future of our children and our grandchildren. What
do you see as the most pressing issues for those in Utah's 4th Congressional District over the next 2 years?
Well, I would say immediately is our COVID response. So we need to get back to work. We need to reopen the economy. And prior to COVID, we had America was enjoying the strongest peacetime economy in our history. Utah, in particular, has been #1 for economic outlook for over 11 years now. So we need to get back to that, make sure that we keep Utah very strong. There's not a lot negative to say about Utah. Utah does well on so many things. It is a leader state in our country. So we want to keep it that way.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. If you were elected to Congress, how would you assess on a national level how we have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic?
First and foremost, we need policymakers, lawmakers, elected officials that respond to the disease, and not just medical professionals, because it is elected officials, it is policymakers that look at everything comprehensively. So while we responded a little bit in fear to the disease, and we were trying to control the disease itself, we need to make sure that we make sure that there's not an effort to control the people, and that we really do have a reasonable response that balances all the aspects of a response to the pandemic.
So I'm with you on the moving targets. We have definitely seen things change rapidly over this, but one thing that has remained consistent is that those are at high risk. There's a high mortality rate among them. So with that in mind, how do you protect those at high risk while still trying to maintain economic health?
I think the answer is embodied in your question is we isolate those populations and we deal with the populations that are most at risk. And it's not the general population. I have under my own roof, I have my father who has COPD, emphysema. He would not do well with this disease. And so, you know, we're very careful with how we deal with him under our own roof. We're careful to wash our hands and to contain any spread really of any infection.
Let's take now a look at the state level, how Utah has handled it. Are you on board with the way we've seen it play out here in the state of Utah?
Well, again, I mean, I was part of responding, and what we've done is we've responded to the information that we've had, and as I mentioned, that information has rapidly changed. The other thing is I think it's highlighted what we can't trust for information. We've been very, alarmingly disappointed in an international response, our World Health Organization, China itself. And so we did respond again, largely out of fear and concern and an abundance of caution. I think as we've learned more, we have started to back away from the more extreme responses. But we do see like counties like Salt Lake County and our county mayor that has continued to try to exercise a more forceful position in response to the disease that is not consistent with the risk, I believe.
Okay, we have.
I mean, you're creating hotlines to snitch on your neighbors if they're not social distancing. You know, that's not my America. That's not the kind of response that we expect in a free.
What would be your America then? Because we have seen people, I think we can all agree, that have acted irresponsibly as well.
Well, I think it's incumbent upon us to be responsible, on the people to be responsible. And to have such a heavy hand, you know, a snitch line, again, that is very, very concerning in a free America.
We have just a few seconds left. I do want to give you one chance. What is your pitch to Republican voters to go with you on June 30th?
So most people ask me two main questions: are you really conservative, and can you win? And I check both of those boxes. I have a 6-year conservative record. You can check my votes. There's a pattern that you can trust. And like I said, I have won 4 elections in this district. We don't know how not to win. So we've got the strongest campaign, $500,000 in fundraising, and a massive grassroots army. We're going to take this seat.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.
We'll continue our conversation with candidates when we return.
You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
On June 30th, Republican voters will choose a candidate to go against Representative Ben McAdams in November. Today, we are checking in with those candidates seeking the party nomination. We turn now to Trent Christensen. Trent, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate your time.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what you feel qualifies you to represent the 4th Congressional District in Congress.
Well, I appreciate that question. When I look at the Republican field, I see a lot of great conservatives, but what I haven't found yet is someone with my economic background, someone that's worked in the private sector, someone that's helped businesses start and grow, someone that's actually created jobs. I see a talk show host, I see an ex-NFL player, I see a politician, but nobody with the actual credentials to credibly say, I can get back to D.C. and I can create jobs for you. I can get your job back, your kid's job back, your grandkid's job back.
So tell us a little more specifically what you believe those credentials that you possess are.
So for the last 10 years, I've helped raise money for small businesses and nonprofits to grow and create jobs. I was also the Vice President for Economic Development, Community Development at Zions Bank. That's what I do. I help small businesses raise the money, raise the investment, and create jobs. And that is the issue in this election and will be for the next several years.
Have you ever run or held political office before?
No, never have.
So why start with Congress?
Well, I figure it's where I can do the best right now. I think our president looked at the state of the country and said, listen, I'm a businessman, I can help, I'm going to run for president. I've looked at the state of our economy, I said my background is in creating jobs, I can help, just like our president's doing, I can get in there and do it right now.
All right, you've already got into this a bit, but let's talk what you see as the most pressing issues over the next 10 years, or 2 years make that, for Utah's congressional district. You already mentioned economy. Any others on the top of your list?
Well, there's so much that goes into that. I mean, when you're talking about small businesses, there's a lot of things that can be done to spur job growth. It has to do with taxation policy. It has to do with spending. It has to do with regulatory policy. And all those things feed in, but if your singular focus isn't to create jobs, then I don't know what you're doing in Congress. That's what my focus is going to be, is to create jobs. And there's a lot of different moving parts to that I understand. I've dealt with them. I've been a part of that for the last 10, 12 years. And that's what I can go back and do on day one.
Since you have made the decision to run, we have seen an unprecedented event take place in our lives, and it has had a very big impact on the economy. Now that we've had time to kind of slow down a little, look at it and assess it, how do you view the way the nation handled the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I think President Trump did an excellent job. I think he surrounded himself with a team of experts. He listened to them. But what we're finding is they keep trying to move the goalposts. They keep trying to say, well, we can't, it has to be 2 weeks. Wait, we can't open yet. We need a vaccine. Wait, we can't open yet. The election hasn't happened. And I think President Trump is doing the right thing and saying, no, we need to open this economy. If the economy falters anymore, we're going to have more problems than a pandemic on our hand. And so the president's being smart, trying to get the economy open, but he needs help. And he needs help from a Republican Congress, not a Congress run by Nancy Pelosi, in which Ben McAdams does whatever she says. So he needs help, and I'm ready to go back there and plug in, get started on day one, because that's my experience. I know how to create jobs.
We're approaching, or right at around 100,000 deaths here in the United States. There is a real health threat here. So how do you balance public health with economic health in moving forward in the way you talk about?
Right. I think it's a mistake not to equate the economic health with our actual physical health. There are impacts on our physical health that have to do with the economy. If you're unemployed and you can't feed your kids, what does that do to your stress? If you can't open the small business in which you've poured your heart and your soul and your sweat and your tears for the last 20 years, if you can't open that, what does that do to your health? So there are absolutely economic issues at play that affect your health that go well beyond the pandemic and that are going to last 5, 10 years. And if our Congress isn't absolutely focused on creating jobs and getting people back to work, we're going to see more long-term damage than this pandemic ever created.
Right, but we do know also that among high-risk individuals, this can be a very deadly virus.
That's
so
right.
How do you protect the high-risk community?
Well, that's the thing, is I don't think we're looking at the data correctly. 1.8% of the population is responsible or has accounted for 45% of the deaths. So why aren't we protecting that population and focusing in on them instead of limiting the economic rights and the constitutional rights of all of our citizens? We need to focus in, be surgical rather than dropping a nuclear bomb and say, let's make everybody quarantine. We need to protect those that need protecting. We need to get everybody else back to work. That's what people want. They want to get back to work. They want their jobs back. And I'm ready to do that.
Okay, the primary is coming up next month, June 30th. What is your pitch to the Republican voters in Utah's 4th congressional district as to why they should go for you instead of the other 3 candidates?
Listen, if you want a good mechanic, you find someone with experience. You want a good plumber, you go find someone with experience. If you want someone to play in the NFL, you go find someone that played in the NFL. Or if you want a politician, go find one. But if you want someone who has spent their career creating jobs, who understands that world, who has given their entire professional career to it, then I ask for your vote. I can get your job back. I can help you restart your small business and help it thrive, help you create more jobs. I can get Utah's economy back on track, America's economy back on track. It's what I want to do, is fight for you and for your job.
All right, Trent, we will follow this and see how it all plays out. We appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, Glenn. Thank you.
All right, we have one more candidate to go. We'll get to him right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue our candidate profiles for the Republican primary in Utah's 4th congressional district. Jay MacFarlane rounds out the 4 candidates seeking the party nomination. Jay, great to have you with us. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Let's start off with your background and qualifications. What do you believe it is that you have done that qualifies you to represent the people of Utah's 4th congressional district?
Well, great question. I've actually spent the last 20 years on the radio talking to citizens of this great state and telling them my ideas, my solutions, what I think should happen, and getting their feedback. I actually got into talk radio because I wanted to be involved in the public debate. So I've been debating with the lawmakers and with the politicians. I know how they think, and I've also been able to come up with great solutions along the way that are tried and tested with the people of Utah. So I really think that gives me an edge over some of the other people in the race.
Yeah, those watching may know you better as J-Mac from your radio days, but you also know, Jay, that through your time covering politicians, that it can be frustrating in Washington, D.C., and hard to get things done that you want to go there to do. So how can you as one person go there and get the things you want to accomplish?
Washington, as you know, is basically shut down. Congress is at a stalemate. And I think they're at a stalemate because we continue to send representatives that are extreme to the right or extreme to the left, and they're unwilling to talk to each other. That's not me. I've learned how to articulate conservative ideals in a way that makes people think. And so I'm able to change hearts and minds. Whereas today's politicians, it seems like they don't want to change anybody's mind. They just want to hurl insults at each other. And whoever lands the best zinger, I guess somehow they're the winner. That's not how I roll. I know how to articulate every belief that I have. And the most common thing that I hear after I talk about an issue is, you know what? I never thought of it that way. So bringing the ability to articulate a clear message and change hearts and minds, I think will be my greatest strength in Washington.
What do you see as the most pressing issues the people of the 4th Congressional District will be facing over the next 2 years?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that drives me and drove me to get off the radio is this national debt. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Washington. And then COVID-19 hit. And so COVID-19 rises above the national debt. How we will recover from COVID-19, what personal liberties we're willing to give up to stay out of a pandemic, and how will we pay back this national debt, and do we need to invest more? I think we're looking easily at a 2-year recovery, Glenn, and I think that's going to be the #1 focus for District 4, and I think it's going to be the #1 focus for the entire country. This is not going to be a quick recovery. I just don't believe that.
Do you believe that freedom and liberty were stamped on in this, or stomped on in this process?
I think it's a difficult situation. The Constitution clearly says you have a right to assemble. It clearly says you have freedom of religion. And then here comes a state government or a federal government saying you can't do those things. I've chosen to look at this as a way to help my fellow Americans. So I put on a mask when I'm in public, not thinking about the public liberty, but thinking about my neighbor. I mean, the Constitution is not meant to be a death sentence. We don't allow somebody to yell fire in a crowded movie theater, even though you have a right to free speech. So this is an intricate balance that our politicians have. They're literally balancing lives with livelihoods. And we have to join with them and cooperate with them to find the quickest way back.
Let's get more into that. What is the quickest way back, keeping both of those things in mind, balancing both public health with economic health?
The CARES Act was a good start from Congress, investing in the American people and investing in workers. I personally believe that we need to do more, maybe one step more, to keep these businesses from going out of business. One of the first things we did is we started announcing what restaurants, local restaurants, are suffering, and we encourage people to go to those restaurants. I think it's going to be a group team effort, but I also think everything looks different for the next half a year. If we're going back to church, we're social distancing. If we're going to a campaign rally, I mean, I didn't think this is what our campaigns were going to look like. I'm campaigning for my living room right now. So Campaigns will look different. Gatherings will look different. And I hope that people voluntarily comply so that we don't have a second wave. And honestly, that's my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Will we have a second wave? Because businesses are already struggling surviving wave 1. If there's a second wave, I don't think they make it.
Yeah, there's no way any of us could have seen what was coming once all these races started. There's no doubt about that. All right, have a few seconds
Absolutely.
left. What is your pitch to Republican voters? Why should they go with you on June 30th?
Well, I believe that I'm the best representative for District 4. I'm a moderate conservative. I am able to converse with the other side. I think if you look at my other opponents, they're just going to go back to Washington. They're going to continue the name calling, the personal insults, and that's not going to move the needle. We need to send people who can communicate with each other, who can recognize the wants and needs of the other side, and who can meld those things together.
All right, Jay, we're going to have to end it on that note. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it. We hope to see you again next week as we go inside Utah politics.